Okay, so we're heading to how in the world our country, the United States of America, becomes a country. It's all about England. And we know that England attempted to claim land in the Americas in the 1500s. In 1587, we learned about the story of the lost colony of Roanoke. Unfortunately for England, it didn't just not end well. Literally over 100 people disappeared from the face of the earth, and we still to this day don't know what happened to them. That isn't a failure, that is an epic failure. And Queen Elizabeth I will never again try to claim land in the Americas. She just doesn't think it's worth it. Well, when she dies and is no longer the ruler of England, a new ruler takes over. It is King James I. And he says, you know what? The Queen Elizabeth, she had a great idea. And so 20 years after Queen Elizabeth I failed, King James I decides to try again at the very same place that the Queen had, and that is Virginia. 20 years later in 1607, he successfully starts England's first colony, Virginia. And that will be England's first colony that they claim out of the 13 total. So yesterday we started Sketch to Stretch to learn about how in the world did England successfully start the colony of Virginia. Well, you can't just start with a colony, it starts with a settlement. And so we're going to continue to read the story using Sketch to Stretch, using our eyes, our ears, and our pencil. So make sure you have your pencil and your packet available. Obviously, you have your eyes and ears, and we're going to continue on with the story. So we are focusing on, okay, when you start a colony, you don't just start a colony. It starts with one successful settlement, one successful town or village. And that is the story that we're learning about. And this story is connected to a famous story, which you will learn about what that is today. And hopefully we'll get to the movie today as well. So while we're doing Sketch to Stretch, we should be looking for the following answers. 1, what was the name of England's first successful settlement? What did they decide to name their town or village that will eventually lead to the settlement of Virginia? We'll also figure out what were our characters, the men and boys, looking for. What, with the help of the Native Americans, what did the colonists eventually learn how to grow, which was as valuable as gold? And finally, you'll learn what famous story is connected to the story of England's first successful settlement, and we'll be able to watch that movie. So just a quick review where we ended up. We know that 3 ships filled with 105 men and boys left England and headed across the Atlantic Ocean towards the Chesapeake Bay. England sent these 105 men and boys so that they can make money, but those 105 men and boys were simply looking for gold. And this is all in the year 1607. We know that when they got to the Americas, they went up a river that they named the James River because they love their king, King James I. They decided to start a settlement. They called it Jamestown, again, because they love their king, King James. Unfortunately, where they chose to start a town or start a settlement was not a good choice. Jamestown had bad water, had many disease-carrying mosquitoes, and the colonists treated the local Native Americans badly, making them very angry and very dangerous. So things are not looking good. Unfortunately, our colonists, our 105 men and boys, were so focused on finding gold that they were not as smart as squirrels, did not prepare for winter. And by the end of the first year, 1/2 of those men and boys had died. And it looked like things were just going to head in that direction, and they would become another lost colony like Roanoke. But we get a hero that saves the day, and his name is John Smith. So we're going to find out in the next paragraph how John Smith kind of saves Jamestown. So again, the first time that you listen, it's just looking and listening. And then after that, you can rewind that section of the video as often as you need in order to sketch. When you're done sketching, you'll resume the video and you'll see my sketch before moving into the next paragraph. So here we go, just with your eyes and ears this first time. After the first year of starvation and experiencing problem after problem, the colonists made John Smith the leader of Jamestown. So making him the leader apparently is how he's going to save the day. He is most likely the reason Jamestown did not become another lost colony like Roanoke. He made one simple rule. Anyone who did not work did not eat. Soon, colonists were planting gardens, building shelters, and putting up fences to protect the colony from an attack. So you're going to go ahead and rewind and listen to it again and again and again. I would say at least 3 times. And while you are sketching your picture, it can be reading to you if you would like. All right, hopefully you have your sketch. If you don't, please go ahead and rewind and listen to it multiple times so you can do your sketch. Here is what I came up with. We have John Smith is made the new leader. They didn't put anyone in charge in the beginning. And so since no one was in charge, no one was working. So as the leader, he made a very simple but effective rule. If you don't work, you don't eat. So of course, people started to work. You can see that I'm going to grab my pointer here. They started to plant gardens, build shelters, and put up fences to protect them from an attack. So hopefully you have in your sketch the idea of his rule: no work, no eat, and that they made John Smith the leader and got people to do things that would help them to survive. All right, next paragraph. Again, listen to it without sketching once, and then you can rewind as many times as you need to have time to do your sketch. In this paragraph, you'll find out what famous story this is connected to. During this time, Virginia was home to over 30 different Native American tribes, most who were led by Chief Powhatan. One day, while exploring the lands around Jamestown, John Smith was captured by Native Americans. A legend says that the chief's daughter, Pocahontas, saved his life. John Smith made peace with Chief Powhatan, and the Native Americans agreed to help the colonists to survive. Please rewind and listen to that paragraph as many times as you need to get your sketch. All right, here is what my brain thought of. Take a look at what I was thinking here. So we have John Smith gets captured by the Native Americans, and Pocahontas, Chief Powhatan's daughter, saves John Smith's life. And this leads to a peaceful relationship and help between the colonists and the Native Americans. Some of you might think Pocahontas was just a made-up Disney character. That is not true. She is a real Native American princess. She was the daughter of the Native American chief in Virginia. She was Princess Pocahontas. All right, let's figure out how this story ends. Again, with just your eyes and ears the first time. Even though Jamestown suffered through many troubling times, with the help of the Native Americans, the colony managed to survive and in time did well. 5 years after the colonists had first sailed up the James River, they found the gold that would make the colony rich. The Native Americans taught the colonists how to grow tobacco. Selling tobacco back in Europe became a profitable business for the colonists. So again, for this last paragraph, rewind as many times as you need. Notice gold is in quotation marks. That's because they never found gold. Instead, they learned how to grow something that was as valuable as gold, and that is tobacco. No one in Europe knew anything about tobacco. It was something that the Native Americans grew in the Americas, and now the colonists can bring this great treasure back to Europe. All right, here's my image. I have here that the tobacco was like gold. It was equal to gold because they could sell the tobacco back in Europe and make lots of money. And here the colonists are super thankful to the Native Americans for this. And Jamestown is now a success. So, at this point, you should have finished the story. At the end of the page are 4 questions. You're going to go ahead and fill in these answers with me here. What was the name of England's first successful settlement? They named their settlement or their town Jamestown after King James I. Make sure you fill that in, spell it correctly. What were the men and boys looking for? If you remember, they sailed in search of gold. Great job. Fill that in. With the help of the Native Americans, what did the colonists eventually learn how to grow, which was as valuable as gold? You can see a picture of it right here. The answer is tobacco. Awesome job. Fill that in on your paper. And last but not least, what famous story is connected to the story of Jamestown, England's first successful settlement? And that is the story of Pocahontas. And some of you guys might have never heard of Pocahontas. Don't feel worried about that. That just means you probably never heard of the Disney movie. So if you're not a big Disney movie fan, there's a good chance that it's not famous to you, but you'll be able to watch a movie about Pocahontas anyway. Your last task before we watch the movie is simply to make sure that you understand, to think before I fill these in. You don't need to write anything. You don't need to say anything. Just think. England's first successful settlement, you should know the name. It is Jamestown. Awesome job. And this is connected to the famous story of, you got it, Pocahontas. What I'd like you to do is to pause the video and see if you can think about what fills in these blanks, and then I'll go over it when you hit play. All right, Jamestown, Virginia was England's first blank settlement. It was England's first successful settlement, meaning one that worked. We know this story involved 105, that's right, men and boys, and they came looking for gold. Awesome job. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure out what fills in these blanks and hit play when you think you're ready. All right, blank died in the first winter. The answer is half died in the first winter. But then we had a hero come and save the day by becoming the leader. His name was, that's right, John Smith, not John White. That was Roanoke. This is John Smith. And he becomes the leader and saves the day by making one simple rule: no work, no eat. And last but not least, see if you can pause and come up with what goes in these blanks. Hit play when you think you're ready. All right, we know in the story, John Smith gets captured by Native Americans. If you thought of Chief Powhatan, that's fine too. But he was saved by the chief's daughter. Her name was Pocahontas. This created a peaceful relationship between the colonists and the Native Americans. And so the Native Americans end up teaching the colonists how to grow something, which was as valuable as gold. That something was tobacco. Awesome job. All right, we're going to stop this video. And in the next little video, I'm simply going to introduce the movie Pocahontas so you know what's going on.